There is an uncontrollable compulsion to indulge in this depraved industry.
Well, maybe it was a little different than the last time you saw him. Let's think about
It consumes me.
Ladies and gentlemen of the IWC, the man who needs no introduction, but's definitely going to get one from the edges of WCW, from the depths of WWF, ECW, TNA, all Ring of Honor, the man, the myth, the legend, Bird and the Villain, Justin and myself are happy to have Crowbar. Sorry, there he is.
Thank you so much for having me.
He is the former WCW Cruiserweight Champion, Hardcore Champion, and Tag Team Champion in WCW. Crowbar, thank you so much for coming on. We got a lot of questions to ask you because you've popped up on social media lately, and people are starting to notice you. You
awesome.
caught my attention a couple months ago. Why don't you tell us about this timeless gimmick you're doing?
Well, I'll start off where it started. Not my last stint with Ring of Honor, but probably around 2012. I believe that's when it was. Jim Cornette was booking there, and I had known Jim from Independence. Jim is also the guy that brought me in to WWF at the time. I was trying to think if it was WWF, WWE, light heavyweight division, and he brought me in, and I was backstage, and I guess looking okay for being out of the business for 12 years, and he walked by, took a double take, and he goes, "Goddamn fuck, the timeless Devin Storm." And it always kind of stuck back, way back there on like the memory bank. It was always there. And over the years, you know, guys always say, I generally friggin' love wrestling. I enjoy wrestling. I've moved on since WCW, never totally out of it because I enjoy this shit so much. I tell people it's not fashionable to say within the industry, I am probably the biggest wrestling fan going. I still watch it professionally and as a fan. And that's why I haven't walked away, and I keep up on it. I stay in shape, yada, yada. And Jim Cornette said that day, like I said, it was in 2012, I think it was. And it just always stuck back there. And then the end of 2019, returned to Ring of Honor with my wife and my attendant / sommelier / bodyguard, yada, yada, which is a cool story there. Make sure we speak about that later. It's a really cool story. And then Ring of Honor and everybody else is affected by the pandemic, and I'm hanging out for months. And I'm really missing wrestling. It's a good outlet. Even if I was doing it once every 2 months, once every month, it was always something I was passionate about. I would grab a booking. Okay, I would want to know immediately, who am I working against? I want to watch their films. I want to get up on the move set, especially if it's somebody I'm not familiar with. I want to go out there and have a great job, have a great show, make it exciting for the fans, entertain the fans, and entertain myself because I just love this stuff. I love performing. I love creating the match in my head and then seeing it come through fruition. So all that stopped, and I was thinking, what could I do? And it was really funny. I've always experimented with trying to piss off the smarts with little things here and there. And I am the biggest fan going, but it's in this day and age, it's really hard to trigger a smart fan because they know everything. The internet is there. And so I had signed up for Twitter in 2017. I didn't touch it until probably the end of November or early December of 2019 when the Ring of Honor thing was going on, just because I had no time. I did Facebook. I run a business. I'm a physical therapist. I have the physical therapy facility, and I take my family time with the kids and the wife real seriously. So I never delved into that. When I started doing more of the wrestling stuff again, I kind of phased out of. I had all my friends from around town, all my local friends from town. You dropped off Facebook. What happened? I'm like, I don't have time to do both. So I'm really trying to do this Twitter thing, and I'm learning how it works. And it is the wild. I learned really quick. It is a disgusting place. But it's funny. It's funny and disgusting. So I've always experimented over the years, even on Facebook, saying something and seeing how it's received, saying something, seeing how it's received. And there was a clip up last, I'm trying to think, June or May or something. It was Effie doing the 10 pelvic thrusts in a corner to his opponent's face. And I said something to the effect, I would never sell a stupid ass move like this. And people were jumping. It was like I killed their firstborn.
Right.
So
how dare you?
And I got a whole bunch of reactions to it. Who the F are you? Blah, blah, blah. You're not relevant. Yada, yada, yada. But one of the responses I kept getting was, who are you, boomer? Who are you, boomer? Who are you, boomer? And if you go back on my Twitter timeline, the very first promo I ever did is entitled, Who Are You, Boomer? And actually, I did it for fun. And I answered these fans, and I did it up against a wall in my house. I posted it, and I've always kind of had this idea. I'm very good friends with Guido from ECW, Danny Doring from ECW, Roadkill from ECW. They're all like family. And for years, we would hang out in the yard and have a couple beers, go in the pool. And I'm not being snarky at all. They would go, dude, you're doing so well, yet you still like this friggin' ridiculous wrestling stuff. You can't walk away with it. Why? I go, because it's fun and I enjoy it. And they go, if I were you, they all go, I would be yourself if you weren't a nice guy. You're successful outside of wrestling, but be a dick about it. And
yeah.
And I always had it there. I go, but I never had time to explore that. So pandemic happens, this thing with the Effie fans happens. There's no wrestling going on at all.
Right.
I need something to occupy my time wrestling related. I love this shit, and COVID hits and I can't do it. We're open at work, thank God, and I'm working. My wife's working, but I'm still missing this very important part of my life. So I cut the promo, Who Are You, Boomer? And I had this really wasn't, like I put it up as a goof. At the time, I had like 310 followers because I never went on.
Right.
And I see, I post it, I go to work, and I'm treating patients, this, that, the other thing. I go back in my office to do some patient documentation, administrative stuff. And I check my phone, and it's like 12 or like 13,000. And then I start going down thing, and Cody commented on it, and he goes, "Who?" with a question mark. I'm like, wow. So I guess people saw this. Whatever. And had he not commented on it, I probably might add, like, I really didn't feel totally comfortable in the character. It's something I did on a whim. Right. And he commented, "Thank you, Cody." I've never met him, but he inadvertently encouraged this whole process to happen. And I saw the views. I got some great reviews. I got messages from people in and out of the business. And if you go back, it was cool, but I really don't think it's anything compared to the promos that I'm doing now. You see a definite evolution from that to here. But then I said, maybe I got something here. So I invested in the camera, the tripod. Like the first one was done like this, and I recorded it. Like you see me there with my hand in front of me, and I had my hand in front of me, and I had the wine glass here. I always had the wine glass, and I recorded it like this. So I said, "Wow, maybe there's something here. So I got the tripod, I got the equipment, yada, yada. The very next week, I believe the second one was me putting myself over somehow, unfathomable, it's called. And then it got into me commenting on Warhorse, and the name of the promo was Send in the Clowns. And then it got on the Garbage Wrestlers and Matt Hardy getting hurt. And it was really cool. I got a crash course in editing from Robert Frank. I'm a huge mark for this guy, the crazy gym guy that does all the rage videos. He's funny as hell. And he's from New Jersey, wrestling fan. He's a great supporter of the wrestling business. And I called him and he gave me a crash course on how to edit and do all this type of stuff. So that way it enabled me to do it myself. That video you showed there with me going in and out of the mansion, that was shot by a great group of guys called GoPro Wrestling. Great guys. They do fantastic work. I don't like to be burdensome. And I also, when I get an idea, I have to act on it now. So when I shoot on location stuff, they're my go-to every single time. But for these promos, if I was going to tell a weekly story on something that was relevant and update, if something happened in wrestling, I could do my setup and I could edit, shoot, produce it, and have it out the very next day if I needed to. And I needed that kind of control. So I had to learn how to edit, how to shoot, and empower myself so that I could do this where I'm not commenting on things 3-4 weeks later.
Right. I mean, because you're like beyond, like your timeless has been, it's like our friend said, she said, who was, your inspiration, getting into the wrestling, but I want to talk about your imagination. You're one of the most creative. I mean, I know you've probably seen the EFED promos around the IWC of people making things. And,
dude, some of those people can do it though. Some of those people are great talkers.
Crow, you have been putting up solid promo work. I'm sorry. Like, as somebody who dabbles, I'm watching, I'm like, wow. That's why when you see something like Timeless, it's like, it's creative and you can see the dedication and love that's still there. And that's still inspiring. I mean, dude, you definitely have a fan base. People speak nothing but volumes. And I love what you've given to the wrestling business because, that's one thing that you can see, storytelling. What are you trying to say? Like, I mean, what's next though? I mean, because
and 2021, let me tell you, I was actually having this discussion with a wrestling friend of mine.
Right.
When I broke in 1991, if you had a concept like this one, you had these big video cameras with VHS tapes, you couldn't shoot and edit like you can now. If you had an idea and you wanted to see it portrayed, you had to find a big company to do it. I'm amazed with the fact that I've always had great ideas for Devon Storm way back when, Crowbar way back when, but we didn't have the technology or the means to make that stuff into reality. And the fact that it was a little bit of crash course for the tech for me, but once I learned it, I felt like I was liberated and empowered to create, within my small scale of what I can do. But I can produce the timeless videos as needed. And it, like I said, going back to 1991, 92, even 2000, if you wanted to get something like this over, you can never do it by yourself without a company. There was no internet like this. There was no social media. It's really a whole new world. And when I did the first video and I saw the response and I was like, wow, because all this was very foreign for me. I did Facebook, that's it. And mainly for my business and, doing family stuff and yada, yada. And then I saw the power that, wow, if I learn how to really do this better, I can create in a way, not just in the ring. I've always loved working hard. There's always been a certain style that I like. And I've always loved seeing that style play out on the stage of the wrestling ring. I loved seeing something here and doing it out there. There's no better rush for me creatively to do something like that. But to be able to portray a character like this and get it out there when you're not on any kind of major TV station or anything was a foreign and new concept, and it blew my mind. And it's really opened up the floodgates of creativity.
Well, you've definitely inspired a lot of us. I mean, I was in a group chat the other day, and your name came up, and everybody in this group chat was like, "We love Crowbar."
Right.
That's awesome.
And some of these people are like 18 years old, you know, which didn't see you back. Like I watched WCW back in the day, you know, and I'm like, man, these people, the Crowbar is doing something right because people know who he is, and it's all due to what you're doing now on social media. People recognize it, people see it. I think you have some of the best promos in the game right now.
Right.
Thank you. I've always been a big fan of talking people into the building. That's always been a term in wrestling, but I was never in a position to really be that guy. So I really never got to cultivate and to really grow that aspect of my character. And it's really been a lot of fun. And it's been, there are guys that know me for years that I never knew you could really do promos or talk or yada, yada. I use yada, yada a lot. I'm a big Seinfeld fan. I'm sorry.
Right. I mean, dude, yeah.
But it's just been a really cool ride, and it's been a cool exploration of something that I just really didn't know was part of my professional character. You know, back in the day, everybody would get up there and do rah, 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 and I'll see you next week. Done.
No, WCW, yeah, WWE and ECW, but no, it's like I said, it's giving you the chance to see a little more because you had UHFs and you had people that made tapes and you had to get it out on a major promotion. Like you said, the pandemic really hit a lot of indie promotions hard. Like you couldn't work.
Yeah.
And it was hard. Like it was massive losses. And I like that you managed to find a way because it's hard. Social media in and of itself is hard to maintain. You had to maintain Facebook. You're there in Facebook. Once you maintain Twitter, it's even harder because it's a whole different concept. You have a way of reaching millions of people around the world with who you are and what you have to offer now. But like you said, mixing that with family is a hard balance. It's a very hard balance.
I actually got calls, dude, are you okay? I haven't seen you post something in, you know, from my Facebook people. Is everything okay with the family? You know, with the pandemic, is anybody sick yet? And it was I just didn't have time to do both. And I chose to really, after that first Who Are You Boomer and the reaction it got, it became fun. And it gave me an opportunity to tell my story. And, you know, it's kind of like real life with an amplifier on it. There are some real aspects of it. And it just became fun and something that occupied the time. And also during the pandemic, I couldn't wait to get in the friggin' ring again. So I cardioed a lot of guys, and I'm not judging. They kind of dropped off. They didn't hit the gym, this, that, the other thing. A lot of guys couldn't go to the gym. I hit cardio like a madman. I trained in my house. I trained at work. I have a gymnasium there at the physical therapy facility. And I took this pandemic and I wanted to come out of it in the best shape of my career. And when that opportunity came for the Super 8, which 3 hours notice, they gave me a call. And in a GCW show, I felt fantastic. And prior to, I was a little nervous because I hadn't done anything in 14 months. So I know I prepped. I know I did my DDPY, my Diamond Dallas Page yoga. I did my weights, but you're still off for 14 months.
Right.
And when I got out there and I felt great and not winded at all, it was just an awesome surprise and a great rush. And it just gave me more fuel for this.
Mm-hmm. Did you see that question from Kite Man?
That's awesome. Kite Man.
Kite Man.
You're awesome.
Kite Man. He is awesome.
That guy. No, Kite Man's the
facial hair
guy.
So it's coming. I'm going to do it. Listen,
you saw that?
I shaved today, and I was where I could do it for the interview, and I messed up shaving. So I had to It's coming. Okay, Kite Man.
It's really. I have to use the Gillette Fusion. I really need that side blade to get in.
Yeah.
There's been many times when I've screwed up. Damn it! I can't do the promo now. It went too far.
It's coming. So
yeah.
So I mean, you've been in wrestling since 1991. You know who inspired you? What got you into professional wrestling?
On an interview, I spoke about this a few weeks ago. My dad watched it with my older brother, who's 10 years older. So I have an older brother, 10 years, an older sister by 11 years, and I wasn't planned.
Right.
Clearly.
Oh.
So anyway, they would watch wrestling late at night. We had a little Cape Cod house, and my bedroom was kind of on I'm just trying to see this room, diagonal to the living room, and it would come on, and it was bedtime. I'd be 4 or 5, but if I cracked the door just enough, I'd be able to see the living room TV, and I would sneak watch wrestling at like 12 midnight. And that's where it started. And as I got older, just a passion grew and grew and grew. If I had to pick one guy that really grabbed my imagination and interest and intrigue, hands down, then and now, Randy Savage. Incredible in-ring work. As a kid, you knew he was cool and he was fast and he was badass and he spoke really crazy and he had these great robes, and he was the whole package. And as an adult and as a professional wrestler now, outside of the great in-ring work, I feel this is something that's been lost somewhat in modern wrestling. Pageantry. This guy oozed pageantry, the robes, the music, the headbands, everything about this guy made you watch him. Way back when the cameras would flash and they would flicker off of his robes. It was just a spectacle to watch.
Chef kiss. Yeah. Like, I mean, and I know, like, I want to get more into, I mean, because you have people like Kite Man, you have people like Logan, you have people like Shredder, like all these people in the IWC who speak volumes, like, and I want to know, I hate to keep dabbling in your wrestling, but you were actually part of the first ever TNA, right?
Yes.
Oh, you did the time was on me. I wasn't ready, Crowbar.
No, I've done like 6 or 7 interviews since this whole thing started, and I didn't have a wine glass, and I got bitched out for it. So here's your wine glass. You got your character.
Thank you.
This may or may not be wine. It might be a vitamin water. I don't know.
I got you. Don't worry.
What was that? What was that like going into the first? Because that was the first actual wrestling company. Because WWF at the time was still the #1 company. This was something brand new, and this was the first ever. And it was a pay-per-view event. And what did you have thinking going in there? Like, I mean, what expectations?
Just prior to TNA, there were several shows with a group called WWWA out of Australia, Worldwide Wrestling All-Stars. Not many people saw the shows, but it was a lot of former WWF and WCW guys. I had a little stint there with Norman Smiley, with Sabu, with Conan, and that was great. And that roster and the management of that company were a lot of guys that became the management of TNA. Jeff Jarrett was heavily involved. Jeremy Borash was heavily involved. Bob Ryder and all those guys were all involved with that. So TNA comes up. At the time, it was a weekly pay-per-view. I do the Battle Royal, the first show, and then they come up with an idea for the Disciples of the New Church, which I thought, we looked badass as hell. I thought it was a great gimmick. It was cool. It was me, Wolfie D. That was, I believe his name was Slash. Malice, who was the Wall in WCW, close, great friend of mine. Rest in peace. I love him to death. And James Mitchell, who I've always been a huge fan of, from James Vandenberg to James Mitchell, just a great, scary, creepy character that just talked great, and you believed every single thing. He just looked. You couldn't find a more perfect character that could deliver a promo than him for that gimmick, and I thought it was great. I
You
thought
knew
it
when he had hair.
Huh?
You knew him when he had hair.
Yes, yes.
I
And it
know,
was
dude.
long-
He pulls like you said. James Mitchell. I mean, he's still in Impact to this day, dude. Like, wow. Like he. I'm sorry, Jay. Like, I was trying to keep it down with my marking out, Justin. Sorry, I'm having a girly moment. You got to bear with me. Some of the biggest names. I'm sorry, he's known some of the biggest names.
So let's shift gears a little bit, because I'm sure you probably get asked questions like this a lot. But you were in WCW, and so we all hear stories about WCW. I mean, what was that experience like for you?
My experience was, honestly, again, not going to sound fashionable by professional standards at all, and I don't care at this point. I'm way past all that. Always a huge fan of the business. Always enjoyed my time. I go back to my first day at wrestling school. It was at Mike Sharp's gym, a crappy boxing ring that was really run down and everything, and just getting to walk between those ropes was amazing. And even when I walk through the ropes now, it's amazing. I thank God every time before I go out. Thank you for enabling me to be able to do this thing that I love doing. And that's a shoot right there. But getting to be there and getting to make a living doing that, sure, it was a job. You have to train, you have to travel, this and that. But at the time, I was probably around 25 years old or so. Never in my wildest dreams did I imagine that I would be there, especially as a character with Ric Flair's kid, getting to hold titles. I enjoyed my whole time there. And if you talk to anybody in wrestling, you always hear stories of guys that were on top and they were just miserable people. And I never understood it. I was there. There were times when I had to pinch myself to believe that I was still there. I was paired up with David and Daphne, and we were three kids just having a great time. So for me, from soup to nuts, from beginning to end, it was always a joyride, and I thoroughly enjoyed it.
At 16 years old, I had a crush on Daphne. So
a lot of people did.
Yeah.
She had a lot of fans, man. She had a lot of fans. Still does.
Yeah. So Kite Man asked, who's the wrestler nowadays that you're impressed by, promo and ring wise?
Ooh. There's a lot of different. It's hard to answer that because I like so many different styles and guys. I like watching big guys work. And I'm going to say the disclaimer now. Time is short. I watch mainly AEW. Either I video record it and on a DVR, and I watch when I have time. Just like the Facebook and Twitter thing, I don't have time to watch all wrestling. I just don't. And I'm not saying WWE is bad or anything. All I'm saying is it's a new product and it's interesting. It's intriguing to watch how something new grows and flourishes. When they do well, when they have minor setbacks. I'm vested not just as a fan in the characters, but I'm vested in watching how the company does. There's an interest there and seeing what they do. And so for me right now, as a professional and as a fan, they have my attention, not just in the wrestling storylines, but I'm genuinely interested on where this ride goes. It's interesting to watch. It's been a long time before there was ever any major competition for WWE. So it's really cool to see where this goes. So what's the question now is promos and in-ring, right?
Yeah.
I've always been a fan, and it's a style that I'm a fan of. I call it, this is just my term for it, the Jerry Lynn, Rob Van Dam, Sabu hardcore style. And what that means to me is you use props that normally occur at ringside, chairs, guardrails, you pull up a mat. a power cord wire. Years ago, you would say a microphone wire. Now there's no more microphone wire. They're all cordless. The tables there and all that type of stuff. These are naturally occurring things. And I like it when those are incorporated within the context of a wrestling match. I'm not a fan of a match that starts off like that, although I've clearly done matches like that. I'm not a fan of garbage wrestling, although in WCW I did garbage wrestling where they just gave you a bunch of props.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, like you're hired to do your spot, you're hired to do that, so you do it. But I'm a fan of a match that starts off with some cool wrestling, maybe a little overly aggressive, and gradually breaks down to where you start bringing stuff in, but there's still wrestling involved. It's not just gratuitous whacking guys with objects. I like weapons used in the context of wrestling moves, if that makes sense. So guys that kind of do, I like Darby Allin a lot. I like I think he has a lot of intrigue, a lot of mystery. He's connected with the fans for sure. And he does some crazy shit. And it's a lot of stuff that I like to do. Cody Rhodes, a great promo. Of course, from the very beginning, great. Chris Jericho there, great promo. MJF, how can you not say he's great? The promo and in-ring style, both. There's so many characters there, and they got a few really great big guys. I love the new Miro character. I love his transformation when he first came in. I really wasn't connecting with the best man thing. I love the boxing trunks and this serious badass killer thing he's doing. I think it's great.
God's favorite champion,
Yep. Murder Hawk Monster's great. Incredible athleticism for a really big guy. It just goes on and on. There's so many great guys there. In ring, one of my favorite guys. So I love Fuego. I love watching Fuego. I love watching his stuff. I think he's outstanding. I love working with guys like that. I'm very familiar with that style because I've done it before, and I'm a lot larger than a lot of the guys now. It's really a crazy thing up here. When I broke in, I was hands down one of the smallest guys on every show. Now I'm one of the bigger guys on every show. So now I used to be, for a lack of a better word, the high flyer, the Mysterio. Now I'm more of the base, the psychosis guy that's going to take this stuff. And but the fact that I've done a lot of it in the past makes me proficient with it. So I still am able to do stuff like this. But yeah, I love watching Fuego. He's fun. He does some unbelievably athletic stuff. I haven't watched Dynamite from last night.
Right.
But I saw the one with the 6-man match. The clips from that were insane. Oh, Dante was insane. That one thing where he backflipped over Kenny Omega looked sick. I haven't watched the match yet, but the clip was, I had to keep watching back. What the hell was that? It was pretty amazing, You got
to watch that, man. We were talking about that earlier. I mean, just a quick question. You mentioned, garbage wrestling, and I hate to make the comparison, but you did wrestle for ECW, and I would never call ECW garbage wrestling by any means. I think it was above its time for the era it was in. Were you able to tell stories in that company as well?
Sure. I really was a glorified job guy there, so I really just got my ass kicked mostly. I wasn't well liked there at all, but it was a great learning experience in wrestling and life that helped me to develop and really grow a thicker skin. I was full-time in school. I would study backstage. I was probably the first guy to bring my video game system on the road with me. And I was trying to think of the best way to phrase it. College-age Chris Ford just really, I didn't fit the culture there at all when I was there. But I really learned a lot. It helped me. There were some tough times there.
Right.
When you're working somewhere week after week, and you know you're not liked well, and you know you don't fit in, but you stick it out. It really helped me grow character and a thicker skin. And it really, there were times when I questioned, do I really want to do this? And all those times I always said, yes, I do want to do this, as bad as this situation is. So it really was a great time of personal and professional development. In hindsight, at the time I hated it. It sucked, but I stuck it out and I learned. But in hindsight, it really made me the person, helped make me the person that I am in life, and also in wrestling.
That's awesome, man. It's amazing how, when you're going through hard stuff, you're kind of like, oh, this isn't good at all. But then you fast forward 20 years and you go, I'm really glad I had that experience.
Absolutely. Yep.
Made me who I am today because of it.
Yep.
Any matches?
Adversity builds character.
Absolutely. Right. Absolutely. Is there any matches that just totally just stick out to you that you've had that you're like, hey, you should go check out?
Probably my favorite match, if I had to give one, there was a whole slew of WCW matches that I loved just because it was WCW, and there were guys there that, just being there was great. But if I had to pick one, the cage match with Sabu for WWWA from Melbourne, Australia, that probably about maybe 7 or 8 people saw on pay-per-view. It's on YouTube. And the cool part was we had worked in Las Vegas for WWWA. We had this crazy hardcore match that went back and forth and back and forth. And at the very end, he dropped a leg off of like the Tron, threw a table on me. We come back with a cage match. And Sabu's an awesome talent. And he just kind of goes, and he's very spontaneous, go, where I've always, I like to say I have a foot in the new school, foot in the old school. But since the beginning of my career, I've always loved, I'm just the kind of guy that knows A, B, C, D. And it was really cool to learn that that's the way Randy Savage used to write out the matches. He would literally see it. He would write it down. And I have that same kind of working up here. So we were going to be the semi-main or the co-main on a pay-per-view in a cage match. I had always wanted to do a cage match. Prior to even getting there, prior to WCW, prior to ECW, huge fan of Sabu. So being able to work with him in the cage was mind-blowing. And we had a great working relationship where I knew all his stuff. I made sure we got it in. I would generally tone down my stuff. I believe when you have 2 guys doing all this wild stuff, it's just overload. I think one guy needs to shine more than the other. So when I worked him, I would back mine off. I would do more power stuff, leave all the flying this and that more so on him. But he trusted me to kind of lay stuff out. He knew I had this memory to do A, B, C, D, and just yada, yada. So I got to envision this cage match for 2 months. And it's so funny. I have these now to this day in every room of my house. If I come up with an idea, I have a marble notebook and I just jot something. So I would just come up with ideas, write it down. And then when I had enough ideas, I start crafting this thing, and my imagination is on overload. It's going nuts. We have a cage. We're on pay-per-view. It's a cage where you have to pin the guy in a cage. So that opens up the door where, if need be, we could leave the cage, go wild outside, but have to get inside to actually have a finish. And if you go back and watch that match, although it's a cage match, there's a definite progression of violence, wrestling to violence, to more violence, to more violence. It ends with 2 cage dives, fire, and all kinds of stuff like that. But that's probably my favorite match. The crowd was electric. It was wild. And just more so having a concept, watching it grow, coming up with ideas, and then seeing that 2 months later blossom into something real was mind-blowing. I'm very, very proud of that match.
I mean, honestly, you have got to drop a link to that match because fire is like boom. And I like the way your mind works. It seems like it's because I have an ADHD brain, and dude, when you're going, I'm right. I'm picking up when you're putting down.
Undiagnosed ADD, ADHD. Way back when they just thought something I did. Something's wrong with them. ADHD, big time. But it actually, when you're passionate about something, it rapid fires. It rapid fires, and you can't stop. If you're not into something, like at 8:30 at night, I finished up my workday and I got to write 20 notes. My brain is oozing out of my ears, oozing. But if it's something like wrestling or Star Wars,
sorry.
That's me. I do the same thing.
Dude, like I'm saying,
if it's something you're passionate about, you can't contain yourself. And you cut people off and they think you're rude, and you're not being rude. You're just so excited. You want to get it out before you forget it.
Dude, I mean, you're a dad like all of us. Like Justin's a dad, I'm a dad myself. Like, you mentioned your family so much. Your career, what you've done, how does that affect you as a father? If I can ask that, like, what is that like being a dad? Well,
WCW ends, and I go to one of my old stomping grounds, the ECWA in Delaware. You know, where I cut my teeth, the home of the Super 8, and I go in the locker room and I see this lovely lady there, and we start talking. 21 years later, we're still together. We got 2 kids, and she still accompanies me to ringside. She's in those videos, but we're probably, outside of our wrestling aspect, we're probably the most normal people you could possibly imagine. We're both in health care. I do physical therapy. She's a registered dietitian. You know, we go to church Sundays. We read at church. So, I mean, we're really boring people. But and for our kids like wrestling. But for us doing it, it's like it's no big deal because it's always been there. Their friends think it's really cool. But for our kids, it's, we'll go to a show and, I'll give an example. When we went to Ring of Honor, I said, guys, we're going down. It's a long day because they tape TV, tape or record. You can't say it, whatever. They record TV now. They don't tape TV anymore. And they're like, oh yeah, cool. It's gonna be neat. And they're there. Dad, when are we going home? We're here all day. And they like wrestling, but they didn't realize what goes into a full day worth of TV. They were used to just going to an indie show here or there.
Right.
No. Couple hours in and out and done. But yeah, they're into it. They think it's really cool that we do it, but it's not a big deal just because it's just always been there. Their friends think it's awesome. Which is cool.
That is awesome, man. So, do you have any merchandise that people can?
Not yet.
Not yet.
But I just signed the paperwork for Pro Wrestling Tees. I will be releasing the Timeless Collection apparel. But the apparel will take some time, but they have a video messaging service. And I've had many, many requests over the year to do video messaging. So I will do them. I'm not going to be nice. It's going to be
good.
You're going to get a video message in the promo style. You're going to have the background. You're going to have the music. You're going to have your own subtitles. If you get a message from me, it's going to be in true Crowbar fashion. I'll have a sip of wine or 2 or maybe 3.
Fair enough.
And I am going to be as douchey as possible in the way I communicate the message you would like.
I'm going to make sure I send Marcus next year one for his birthday. So, great.
Be fair, Crowbar. Be fair. All I ask. I mean, those are cameos, so we're definitely going to give it a shot because I want a timeless shirt. I'm sorry. I like red Merlot, BT Dub. Like, it's got to be dry.
Pinot Noir is my favorite. That's my favorite.
Pinot Noir?
That is legit.
Yes!
That is my legit. That is legit. Pinot Noir is my favorite. When I do indulge, that's my choice. And there may or may not be a timeless wine on its way as well.
Oh.
Yes, I will take that. Earlier, Courtney asked, is that Hans? Huh?
Oh, no, I was going to say, before we went on the air, you showed us you gave us a tour. And I know a couple people in the chat are into that type of stuff. Do you mind giving them a little tour?
If I unhook, if I hit a button by accident, forgive me. I will come right back. So I'm trying. There's Han, and for Christmas this year from ECW's Roadkill, I got an addition to Han, Salacious Crumb.
That's
from the great guys at Virtual Basement doing the Wrestling Code video game. I recently acquired an R2D2 coffee table. And let me walk around. There's an Imperial Stormtrooper holding the hardcore WCW title.
What? Yes. Nerdgasms. This is so delicious. Justin, this is amazing.
Random Star Wars art there.
That's the second Death Star, Justin.
Death Star.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
There's a big Darth Vader I got there. Life size, which is one of my favorites. Of course, there's Mando. He's great.
Oh.
And I have a lot of little statues and collectibles, which I've put away temporarily. We just adopted 3 kittens, so I don't want them to get knocked down. So right now they're on hiatus.
Fair enough. And if I could ask, what is your favorite Star Wars movie? Don't even think about it.
Hold on, wait. I just said something. Oh, my favorite movie, Return of the Jedi. And I'll justify it too. A lot of people say Empire Strikes Back, but let me justify it. Let me put it into context why. Empire Strikes Back was awesome. You find out Vader's not a robot or anything. That he's Luke's father. Mind-blowing. Mm-hmm. Luke loses his hand. You're fired up to see Luke fight Vader in Empire Strikes Back, and he basically gets his ass handed to him. So, and he gets this terrible revelation, and he loses a friggin' hand. It's bad. Han's frozen. It's just a really great. You put your heroes in the worst situation possible. Great, but as a kid, growing up at that time, you waited years for these movies to come out. And so if you go back to the original Star Wars and New Hope, you heard about Jabba the Hutt. That scene with Han Solo and Jabba in the hangar there was not there.
Right.
It was not there. You heard about Jabba. You heard about Jabba again in Empire. You never saw Jabba. Mm-hmm. You heard about the Emperor. You saw a hologram in Empire Strikes Back. Never saw it. And then you finally come to Return of the Jedi. Luke got his ass handed to him the last time you seen him. Now he starts off, he's in black hood, black glove, goes into Jabba's palace to get his friend. The guards come up, and Luke friggin' chokes him out like this, which is amazing. Mm-hmm. Then you finally get to see Jabba the Hutt for the first time. Had no idea what this guy looked like, and it was an amazing job. This you couldn't even imagine, giant, big, friggin' disgusting slug, and he was, and it just was everything you imagine, but way more. You didn't even imagine that. It was just, wow, this guy's disgusting, and he's bad, and he's huge. How's he move? I mean, all this stuff like that. And then you see Emperor for the first time, and you see Sith lightning. What is this shit? Wow,
Right.
and you find out Leia's Luke's sister. Not a big reveal for me, but it was cool. But Luke has this fight with Vader. He's holding his own, and he's giving Darth Vader an ass whooping. Wow! So now you're fired up because he's fighting Vader, and he's friggin' getting some offense and winning. Then the Emperor has Luke down. Vader saves his son. Oh my God! He does the big turn. Nobody saw that coming. Nope. And then Vader takes off his helmet. All this stuff at that time for me was amazing. And when I watch Return of the Jedi, I remember those moments as a kid, and that's why Return of the Jedi will always be the best for me. That's why.
Fair.
There's a lot of emotions tied to that movie.
Leia bikini scene. Just saying that was also.
Oh well, that's great too. Of course.
I'm just saying.
Yeah.
That was. Yeah. I mean, Return. He's right. I mean, before we dive deeper into this, I mean, is there anything else? Because we're creeping towards the finish line. Is there anything that you want anybody to know? Anything that you want to say to the people watching you, the people who still believe? I mean, because a lot of people believe in you guys, and that you really do have a mark that it leaves, even with your storytelling. What do you want everyone to know before we go and how to find you?
Everybody, if you reached out and you were cool, that's awesome. Just like you guys, awesome. I've got so many hate DMs from people, and they're equally great. It's awesome, and it's really been a really cool ride. There's some cool stuff on the horizon that I'm not at liberty to say now, but just stick with the ride. And when I get out there again, as always, I'm going to give 110, 150%. And the story's not done yet.
It's not done yet. We look forward to your merchandise, to maybe your wine coming out, your apparel, because I can tell you, me and Marcus, we will purchase it.
Yeah,
awesome.
We are huge fans of you. You can find you on Twitter at WCW Crowbar, right?
Yep, that's it right now. That's all. No Instagram. No, that's all. All I have time for right now is Twitter. So if you're trying to find me, that's where I'm at. And just thanks, guys. It's been a lot of fun, wild ride, and who knows what's next.
Well, thank you for joining us, everybody.
Timeless.
Bird and the Villain.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Crowbar, for joining us. I hope everybody enjoyed it as much as I did. Have a good night.
Yeah.
Thanks, guys.
Hey, guys.